Good evening, everybody. I'm Mary O'Connor with the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation and the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health here in Anchorage. On behalf of Alaska Public Media, thank you for watching Hangar Flying. This evening, we are honored to have Ross Nixon back as our guest. Ross is the author of a new book called Finding Carla, the story that forever changed aviation search and rescue. Welcome back, Ross.
Hi, Mary. Good to be back.
On our last show, we talked about the accident that led to the development of the requirement for emergency locator transmitters, or ELTs, on aircraft. Can you give us some background about how Carla's story led to this legislation?
Sure. Back, this book, Finding Carla, took place in the 60s, this event. And since 1964 is when an FAA bulletin came out about ELTs and the feasibility of it. And then Pete Dominick was a senator from Colorado. He was the flying senator, they called him. He was a World War II naval aviator, 5,000-hour pilot, and he knew that ELTs would save people. And there'd been a series of accidents where airplanes went down, the people survived and were missing. And so from about 65 on, Pete Dominick wanted to get ELTs in airplanes. He knew that they worked. There'd been some tests, and they were using them in Vietnam. And so in the back of my book, I have all the Senate records, and you can read how he increasingly became frustrated because there was a lot of foot dragging on the part of the Federal Aviation Administration, some of the airplane associations on mandating ELTs. You know, nobody likes a new law, nobody likes changing things, nobody likes spending money. But he could do the math and he could see that, these, in an ideal world, they'll take the search out of search and rescue. So for a few years, these accidents happened in the lower 48 and there were people that lived for a day or two afterwards, and then, they perished and then their plane was found and, a little bit too late. And then this accident happened in March 67, and 6 months later, after the plane was found, it was discovered that the people, Carla and her mother especially, had lived for almost 2 months in the wreckage, and they were beneath an airway. There were over, several thousand flights over the site of this accident over the 2 months, but they had no way to signal their predicament. And so finally, this was the clincher here. Pete Dominick was outraged. In 1967, 1968, he raged in the Senate, got some other senators involved, Senator Warren Magnuson from Washington, and then Representative Ottinger from New York. He also was behind this, and they just, raised Cain and finally got legislation promoted mandating ELTs, and that was signed in 1970, that ELTs be mandated aboard all civil aircraft in the United States. So, and it was because of this accident. It was so shocking.
So basically, they proved what a lot of people knew was common sense and needed to be done.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, some of the definitive ELT tests were done on this site. The exact site of this accident, and they found it, the planes took off from Reading and they found it within 40 minutes, it's several tests.
Wow.
So ELTs work, they're not perfect, but, you had to start somehow, and that's what this book is about.
So this book, you and I have talked, and there are many safety lessons that we can take from this story, not just the ELTs.
Yeah.
So the NTSB investigation yielded several probable causes for the accident, so maybe it could have been prevented in the first place. Can you talk about some of those things that maybe weren't in position in the late 60s but have improved so that this wouldn't happen again?
Well, I don't know about saying wouldn't happen again, because, no matter what, it seems like we're going to have incidents and accidents. And, but since then, the technology to get weather information is phenomenal. And I would say that would be one of the huge things here, because, back then they had, there were flight service stations and, weather coming in on teletypes. And, nowadays we have, we have personal computers that we can carry with us. We can look at weather cams, we can get some really up-to-date information. We get the weather that is as updated as a flight service station gets. We have things like ForeFlight that we can use in the airplane. Some of the just modern technology that gives us up-to-the-minute weather. I think radios are a lot better nowadays too. Back in the 60s, I don't want to date myself, but I grew up, in my folks' airplanes too, and the radio tubes and things like that. They did have solid-state radios then, but I think that radios are better nowadays. So the communications and informations I think are better, and so those are two things that I can think of
Okay.
that would help.
Yeah, they definitely
yeah.
make sense. We are running out of time, so we will be back on the next show, and we're going to talk about some more safety lessons that can be learned from this accident. So thanks for being here, and thanks for sharing the story
great.
with
Thanks
us.
for having me. So.
Thank you.
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching Hangar Flying. Please tune in to our next show, where we're going to talk with Ross Nixon about some more of the ways that we can decrease search time and increase the chances of being safely rescued. Until next time, fly safely.